There is a lot to tell about this interesting genius, Sergius Tsoukonos, which was planned sometime in the future. But a significant event happened that makes me tell about him and his ideas, his discoveries, right now. So, briefly about the scientist, our contemporary, who created his own model of the universe and is worthy of at least a couple of Nobel Prizes. Although personally, I am not particularly fond of official science and its regalia. Why? Here is a simple example of a battery, Maxwell Chikambutso. His discovery is not recognized by anyone. A year 2, or maybe 20, it doesn't matter that not just prototypes were created, but full-fledged serial batteries. They exist, they function for years, but T-Chichais cannot be. Therefore, Chikambutso has no patents. However, so much for science. Let's return to Tsoukonos. Sergei Ivanovich is able to amaze those who have never heard of his work, and this is not a phrase for the sake of PR, no. These are truly shocking ideas. However, I should warn you, you will have to strain your brain here. Although I will try to present his discoveries very briefly and simply, since my task is not to prove theories, but only to interest you, dear friends. Everyone decides for themselves what to do next. Those who are eager will find more complete information and immerse themselves in the world of Sergius Tsoukonos, enjoying his stunning discoveries. After all, he is the author of books, scientific articles, and not just popular videos on YouTube. So imagine a 19-year-old student who has to cram Einstein's theory of relativity. But he personally does not understand the theory, and he is forced to suffer and pass the exam like a parrot, not understanding the essence of the formulas. This tormented our hero, and then one day, when he was simply walking past the lilac bushes in the glorious city of Stalingrad, now Volgograd, it dawned on him. Yes, again we are talking about the mystical insight that Tesla and other talented people described. Sergius Tsoukonos, according to his story, literally received from heaven a portion of information that shocked him. He rushed home and wrote everything down in a notebook. Yes, he filled more than 30 pages, fearing that he would forget the details of this heavenly revelation, in which there was just a place for the theory of relativity. It became clear to the student down to the last comma. Perhaps someone will think that all this is just nonsense. Who knows how many lunatics there are who beautifully tell their schizophrenic visions. Many, our heroes, fellow students, physics teachers, and everyone he tried to tell something to treated his ideas in approximately the same way. Therefore, our the hero's enthusiasm faded for several years, until he became acquainted with the theories of outstanding physicists, for example Markov, and these theories actually confirmed his ideas. They fit well into his hypothesis. But for the sake of simplicity, let's start from afar. Look, before Copernicus, people sincerely believed that they were in the center of the world, so God was deigned, created a flat earth and celestial spheres, along which the luminaries glide, including the sun and the moon. Everything was done by God for his children, for people. But Galileo, Copernicus, and later other scientists using a telescope saw that everything is arranged completely differently. It is not the red sun running across the sky, but the planet Earth revolves around the source of life, and this planet is just a particle of the universe, in which there are many stars, many galaxies, and we are not at all the center of the world. And we are on the outskirts and insignificantly small, alas, this is how telescopes see it. Let's face it, a couple of 100 years ago people saw the world more simply. Climbing a high mountain, we will see a circle with a radius of 100 km, just 100 kilometers. This is how people saw the world, and their world was smaller and more comfortable. A person saw the smallest speck of dust with his eyes. This is the minimum, and at the same time, he could see a distance of 100 kilometers. This is the maximum, at the same time. No one tried to calculate what the ratio of these sizes was, and it, by a strange coincidence, is a constant value. A person a little over a meter sees a distance of 100,000 meters, 100,000 times greater than himself, and at the same time, he sees a speck of dust that is 100,000 times smaller than him. In mathematics, this is 1 multiplied by 10 to the 5th power. Remember this number. And so this whole simple, understandable world fell apart. After the invention of the microscope and telescope, people began to move into the micro-world, and into the macro-world, into the cell and into space, down to the atoms and up to other planets. This opened windows to unknown worlds for them. Everything has changed. We are no longer the center of the world. We are insignificant and petty. Right. Let's look at the size of the material world, which is open to our scientists, our science, at the present time. Let's just take the facts. Everything we see with our eyes, radio telescopes, and other devices is called the universe or metagalaxy. Scientists are not able to look further even in their minds, even in theory. And the size of this entire world is 1 multiplied by 10 with 28 zeros, or to the 28th power. It takes a ray of light about 15 billion years to cover this distance. Horror, but there is also a microworld, that is, we can move not only up but also down to small sizes. A cell, then molecules, then atoms, 10 to the minus 13th power, or the nucleus of an atom, a proton. Science can no longer see below this limit. There are no such devices. Apart from the proton and the electron, science does not record anything. There are attempts to obtain new small particles in a large collider, but even theory is not able to expand the microworld, lower than 1 multiplied by 10 to the minus third power. This is the lower limit of the world, and so, within the boundaries of this world, we find a harmonious relationship of all objects and quantities. The upper one is 1 multiplied by 10 to the 28th power, and the lower one is 1 multiplied by 10 to the minus 33rd power. Remember the children's questions, which is bigger, a whale or an elephant? Adults also feel curiosity and also persistently seek answers. And Sergius Tsoukonos himself has been collecting sizes, whales and elephants. Or rather, what relates to the material world for more than 30 years, delved into reference books, checked the data, and found paradoxical facts, and they turned out to be incredibly interesting. So let's move on to discoveries. Look at the entire scale, the entire graph. This is a segment in which exactly 61 divisions. As in, we will repeat in brackets from unit to 10 to the minus third power to unit to 10 to the plus 28 power, which is exactly 33 plus 28 to 61. But where is 0? Where is the reference point, the center? And what is there in the center? And it turned out that in the center is unit multiplied by, in a word, an object the size of 50 microns. Who knows what this thing is, the size of which is exactly 50 microns? Here it is, a miracle. This is a brick of life, or to be more precise, these are the sizes of cell nuclei. Whether it's a human or a whale, the cell nucleus has the same size, 50 microns, and this point is in the center of the world scale. Would agree this cannot be a coincidence. Good, it is worth citing another fact separately. The size of the nucleus of a female egg is 50 microns, and the size of a spermatozoon that has broken through the membrane is only 3 microns. But, making its way to the target, it also increases to the same 50 microns. Thus, merging a new particle of life is formed. These are not just numbers. This is a clear program. The question is whose? And further, the conclusion, all of us, all living creatures of our Earth, we begin our journey from this point, from the large-scale center of the universe. Doesn't this make you tremble? After all, we have all learned the sad fact that a person is a speck of dust in the world of infinity. But suddenly, it turns out that it is we who start from the center of the universe. It would seem that the Creator has more weighty matters, a host of stars, galaxies, but no. The Most High Creature's favorite creations are living beings. They are in the center. It's simply amazing. And no less amazing is that our entire field of life, the entire scale of space and matter, is clearly divided into segments, into proportional intervals. There are 12 of them, and each is 5 orders of magnitude apart from the neighboring one. More or less by 100,000 times. Clearly, exactly 100,000, 1 by 10 to the 5th, and each point station of this route is a significant object. That is, let us repeat everything that we see and can somehow record, measure, calculate. All this has clear proportions, clear symmetry. It turned out that all our objects are not simply somehow related to the sizes of other objects, but are clearly connected. An atom with rotating electrons is larger than the nucleus of an atom, not by 100, not by 1,000, but by 100,000 times. 1 times 10 to the 5th power. This is our yardstick, so to speak. Let's go down the scale, to the micro world. The nucleus of a cell is 100,000 times larger than an atom. Here is the scale of the sizes of the universe. I will name the points on the scale of sizes. Minus the third power is the maximum. This particle has not yet been discovered, only calculated. Minus the 28th is presumably a photon. Minus the 23rd, the nucleus of an electron. Minus the 18th, electron. Minus the 13th, the nuclei of atoms, proton. Minus 8 atoms. Minus the 3rd, the nuclei of cells, 50 microns, the center of the scale. Plus the end, the human cell. And so on to the last interval, or to the metagalaxies. Everything is connected with this value 100,000. 10 to the 5th, with this yardstick. And now a few words about man. Sergius Tsoukonos paid a lot of attention to living beings and their sizes, their proportions. But I try not to clutter the material with unnecessary details. It is impossible to cover all his discoveries in one video, so we'll allow ourselves just one stroke about man and his place in this world. The fundamental value, Planck's constant, is equal to 162 by 10 to the minus 33rd power, and the size of a hydrogen atom is 162 by 10 to the minus 8th power, and the average height of a person on the planet is 1.62 mm. Yes, do not doubt, the average height of people is 162 cm. But this is not the main thing, but the proportion, the relationship of our size with the sizes of other objects in the universe. It is incredibly clear and constant. This is very reminiscent of a verified program. A separate stroke, just a stroke, where a person is formed and developed inside the mother's womb for 9 months. It would seem that everyone knows. And how many times does it increase in size during all this time? Guess. 100,000 times? That yardstick again. How many times does the volume increase? 10 to the 15th. That's a billion million times. Such growth resembles an explosion. The speed of particle movement is incredible. Even a hydrogen bomb is not capable of this. Otherwise, one bomb would scatter its particles over 1 billion kilometers per day. Only the origin of life produces such an explosion. Let's return to the model of the universe. To simplify, imagine a typical dial of our watch. 12 sections, intervals, and each interval is 5 small segments. Exactly the same in our scale of the universe. 12 intervals, at each point there is a certain object. A reproductive cell, an atom, a proton, the core of a star galaxy. They are all on our dial, and each point is 5 divisions away from its neighbor. And an interesting coincidence of models. Agree? Yes, listening to all this for the first time, you will doubt, what kind of nonsense is this? Who needs all this? Games with numbers. But having delved into it, you will appreciate the truth because it inspires. There is nothing random in this world. We are all created according to a clear program and not chaos. Everything is interconnected and living people are on the same scale as stars and galaxies. We are all links in the same chain. We are only at different points on the scale of the universe. It is amazing, isn't it? Please forgive me for trying to tell you about important things too quickly and therefore not always accurately. But anyone who understands the essence of what is said can read the books of the author, Sergius Tsoukonos, our contemporary. After all, this is only an introduction to his theory, only a preface, and how much he deduced from this idea, what it is impossible to convey. You can listen to him for hours and be surprised all the time, because all this was lying on the surface. Why did no one notice it? A scale with 61 divisions is simple arithmetic. But for some reason, no one before him tried to tie the sizes of objects to the scale of the universe. No one noticed the periodicity, equal intervals y, and no one would have guessed that a person with his average height, 162 centimeters, is so tightly tied to the scale of sizes, that he is probably the central grain of the universe. Explanation, I had to tell about Sergei Ivanovich and his ideas, theories earlier than planned, because in January 2025, he died tragically in a car accident. His ideas are still only making their way to the hearts of people, and he is no longer here. It is a pity. I am sincerely sad that this person is no longer among us. Discover phenomenal individuals and incredible yet real events on this channel.